Let's move on to number 798. This is an idea that's bounced around in Oklahoma since I was a kid. I remember discussions
Absolutely.
about this. So this is not a new question. It's a question we've wrestled with for a long time, and it's finally made it to the ballot.
Well, Oklahoma is well known that we have a lot of statewide elections. We have 11 statewide offices that are elected. I think we've been as high as 23. But what State Question 798 actually does is just combines the lieutenant governor and governor on the at the top of the ticket. So it would establish a joint ticket for the top two statewide office holders, governor and lieutenant governor. If approved by voters, these offices would not be elected together on one ticket until 2026. So I always kind of explain why 2026. Let's say, for example, we have Matt Pinnell and Anastasia Pittman who are running for lieutenant governor. If they are elected in 2018, their term limit would end in 2026, technically not affecting anybody that was elected in the year 2018, unless they decided to seek a different office, and then that office was to be sought by somebody else, or if in 2022 they were defeated as that office is up for re-election. But the idea around delay of 8 years is to allow for those that had already filed for office, already announced for lieutenant governor, to basically stay within the system they currently have, not unlike term limits. If you remember the implementation of term limits, the reason why in 2004 we had a large wave of legislators come into office, that was because term limits were voted on, but they said, let's allow for everybody that's currently in to serve that entirety of term limit.
So the authors were trying to say, let's make the decision about the idea, not about the personality.
Not about the personality.
Or the people that are in those particular spots. So it's
really good way.
Trying to free it up from those immediate issues.
That's correct. So what are supporters saying about State Question 798? Creates a more effective executive branch, allowing for unified vision and stronger leadership, working towards shared goals. Would make government run more like a business, where a CEO or business owner can select staff and assign responsibilities. Currently, our lieutenant governor's role is weak. Operates independently of the governor. This would ensure the governor can trust the lieutenant governor to help hold the 200 plus state agencies, boards, and commissions accountable. Opponents, what are they saying? If this takes effect, there is not a set process for how the lieutenant governor will be selected, which may cause confusion. Voters currently do a good job of vetting the lieutenant governor separately from the governor. So, I mean, those are kind of what everybody's talking about in terms of whether or not this state question goes into effect. In terms of polling, and I will state this, during the first debate between the Republican nominee, Kevin Stitt, and the Democrat nominee, Drew Edmondson, both of those nominees supported the idea of 798. Governor Edmondson did give a caveat to that, basically saying that depends on how the legislature enacts it, as long as the nominee gets to select, which not all states have a lieutenant governor, so it's hard to track from a 50 state perspective, but over 35 states actually do elect lieutenant governor and governor together on the top of the ticket, very similar to what the president and vice president actually does.
And it varies. Most of those states, the gubernatorial nominee selects the lieutenant governor nominee.
Correct.
But there are some states where the party in a party event or selects the nominees and may match up a governor and lieutenant governor. So I think that's what Drew was trying to indicate. If he was going to be the governor and a governor lieutenant governor team,
he wanted the opportunity to select.
He wants to pick who that lieutenant governor is. And this question doesn't specify how that will happen. So if you vote for this, you're going to have to trust the legislature to come back and enact how that lieutenant governor and the governor will be matched up.
That is correct.
And so that's the question. To address the first opponent issue there.
Sure.
The other issue that comes up a lot of times in this governor lieutenant governor, for many years our state was pretty much an all Democrat party state, and so you'd end up with a governor that was a governor and lieutenant governor that were both Democrats. In recent years, you've tended to have mainly a Republican and a Republican, but we have had occasion of a governor from one party and a lieutenant governor of another party not too long ago, and so that
Brad Henry and Mary Fallon.
So that creates questions of does that governor trust leaving the state when the lieutenant governors of another party? Do they, when that lieutenant governor would take over, are they going to do something that they disagree with? So there's lots of management questions that come into play if you have a governor and lieutenant governor that don't necessarily trust or like each other or have different philosophies. And so that's part of what is one of the main things that leads to support for this idea of a governor and lieutenant governor together.
Yeah, it's unified vision. I mean, anytime, think about it from our president, Donald Trump, and his vice president, Mike Pence, you usually don't hear differing ideas. There's usually some uniform leadership, uniform vision. And you referred to back to 2004, well, whenever I was serving, but it was basically from the year 2002 to 2010. We had a scenario, basically, I think it was, or maybe it was only 2008, but we had a scenario by which we had a lieutenant governor that whenever the governor, because of our Constitution, leaves the state of Oklahoma, becomes the acting governor of the state of Oklahoma, there was always discussion in the legislature talking about how, well, the governor didn't even alert Mary Fallin that he was leaving at the time because he didn't want anything to adversely occur. I remember a few situations where the governor would leave the state and the legislature would discuss budget specifically, and it might have even been a scenario in 2010 that actually occurred. But I think narrowing this down and really getting to the nuts and bolts of why the state chamber thinks this is important is for that uniform vision. You want to make sure that whether you know what the lieutenant governor's role is within our state of Oklahoma, the common everyday voter believes that the governor and lieutenant governor are 1 and 2. If they are 1 and 2, then they want them to go in the same general direction for strong leadership and a unified vision. And that's the reason why our OK 2030 plan actually adopted this reform.
And I guess at the national level, to use your President Trump and Mike Pence example, think of Vice President was Biden with Trump. Things are already pretty exciting with Trump, and
that would be extremely exciting.
So that's why there's a lot of people think it makes a lot of sense to have the governor and lieutenant governor of whatever party or philosophy the voters accept to be a team. And so you've already mentioned that the state chamber is supportive of this. Farm Bureau over the years, for many years, had this in our policy and have been strong supporters of it. At this particular time, it doesn't happen to be in our book either way.
Sure.
But I would tell you that personally, I think it's a very good idea, and I personally have worked for this for 30 or 40, maybe 50 years. So for a very long time. But officially, Oklahoma Farm Bureau doesn't have a policy on this, but I think that was a good scenario of the pros and cons, and hopefully folks can go forth and make a decision and know that it doesn't affect the personalities. It's a decision they can decide on philosophy for 2000 and what do we say, 16?
2026.
26, hey, yeah. So we already had 2016.
One additional thing I do want to throw out there, because the state chamber obviously engages the 23rd in Lincoln, one of the things we will be advocating for is a scenario by which we kind of talked about is making sure that gubernatorial nominee for the party gets an opportunity to select the actual running mate, because that gets to the unified shared vision.
And I will commit today, I think, on behalf of Farm Bureau members, that we will also be active at the Capitol to assure that. I think otherwise it defeats the whole purpose of this question. The goal that everybody has for doing this is to have that really be a team concept. Lieutenant Governor already is viewed as the leader of the tourism agency and serves on several other boards and commissions, but a lot of time there's a general consensus among state leaders that the lieutenant governor, if there was a real shared vision, could serve an even larger role and accept more responsibility if they and the governor were
working in tandem.